Hello and welcome to this week's show. My special co-host is none other than Bryce Holloway, and we'll bring Bryce into the show in just a moment. Of course, he is the co-host of Escape from the City, the brand new series on the ABC, which is absolutely fabulous. Also co-host of the Property Couch podcast, and he is a partner at Empower Wealth. Let me give you a couple of leading stories this week. CoreLogic's Pain and Gain report this week's telling us that 12% of Australian properties were resold at a loss compared with what the sellers had previously paid for them. And that was only in the first 3 months of 2019. Brisbane, of course, performing the worst. Meanwhile, in the USA, the housing shortage has fueled competition and resulted in sky-high price gains throughout 2017 and the first half of 2018, and it's on the horizon again, and supply could potentially hit an all-time low. So we know what that will do to the market. There's some of the stories around the world, but the stories that Bryce and I'll be covering, the real important ones, of course, the Gold Rush era kit home, also a panda that eats, shoots, and leases. That was really hard to say, I've got to tell you. The ultimate water views, a lesson in what turns buyers off, and kooky, oddball, or is it absolutely downright genius design? Back with those stories and more, and Bryce Holdaway in just a moment.
Your business card is a vital selling tool and a constant visual reminder of who you are, what you do, and more importantly, how you can be contacted. Introducing our new Velvet business cards, featuring a luxurious premium laminate that has a velvet texture and is soft to the touch. Printed on a resilient 450 GSM card, these cards can be printed with a range of spot gloss and foiling options to give your office that prestigious look.
And joining me is my co-host, Bryce Holdaway. G'day, Bryce. How you doing?
Hey, Kevin. I'm well. How are you?
Oh, fantastic, my friend. Thank you very much for joining us. It's great. I love your new show on the ABC too.
Thanks for watching. Yeah, it was a bit of fun. Certainly gives me an opportunity to get around the country and share some stories with some folks. So thanks for tuning in.
I saw one recently. I think you were on the Gold Coast, and I felt like just sort of reaching out and saying, hey, yeah, I know exactly where you are.
Yeah, it was. Well, I used to live on the Gold Coast, Kevin. So from 2002 to 2006, I felt like I was going home. But most people associate the Gold Coast with the sand, but I get to go on the hinterland, as you saw. It was really good.
Yeah, no, it's a great series, and I love it's almost the reverse of you know people wanting to leave the city to get out into the country, which I've got to tell you is exactly what Karen and I have just done now. So yeah, very very happy with that. What'd you do? Sea change or tree change? Sea change.
Oh, nice.
Sea change. Yeah, we're down on the water actually. So we should have let you know. We might have been able to do something about it.
Well, I've done the same, Kevin. I've moved out of the big smoke of Melbourne. I've gone down to the surf coast. So
beautiful.
Just a couple of hours away. My kids are surfing most days. So
yeah. It is absolutely amazing. Like I was just saying to Karen this morning, you just feel so much more refreshed and you're a lot more relaxed. And even though I'm working just as hard as I used to, I don't feel like I am. So it's lovely to have that change.
Yeah, the lifestyle change is amazing. And my wife and I went to the movies the other day, and we sort of looked at each other and went, "You too, right?" And like we didn't dress up. We just put a Kathmandu coat on, so we stayed warm and popped down. It's just the laid back lifestyle which you've obviously dialed into as well.
It is indeed. Hey, listen, we better get down to business, mate. The first story coming from realestate.com.au, the Gold Rush era kit home. This is a somewhat unusual house that was brought to Melbourne in kit form by the ship's captain and was assembled in the 1860s. So they were doing kit homes way back then.
Yeah, clearly they had budgets back then as well.
Yeah, so a lot of character retained in this property, and we see that quite often, don't we? With particularly in Melbourne and Sydney, where they do retain a lot of heritage.
Yeah, well, it all comes down to the scarcity thing, isn't it? Someone has something that's a bit unique, that's not the same as next door. Really gives an opportunity for people to put their hand up and say, "Hey, this is something that reflects me," right? So, as you can see from that story, you have someone who's seeing something that's a different design quirk, and they love it. And then if you get two or more people interested in that, obviously creates a scenario where value increases.
Absolutely, my friend. Hey, listen, I want to, before we take you to the next story, I just want to remind you that Real Estate Talk is out tomorrow. Big demand for industrial warehouses. This is a story from Brad Beer, good friend of ours, Brad Beer from BMT Tax Appreciation, about the demand for industrial warehouses, and he talked about some of the great taxation benefits. The 3 big property lies, the 10 factors to watch out for to see what balance is coming to the market this year. A lot of sad stories too, Bryce, about the high-rise and the dangers with buying off the plan. It's a story we talk to one of our commentators about how it was just so predictable. Some really sad stories, aren't there?
Oh, absolutely, and it's really creating a confidence challenge, not only for the people who want to live in it, but the certifiers who get to sign off on them aren't getting professional indemnity insurance to do that, and it's concerning, very concerning.
Yeah, very concerning. I don't know if you're following it as well, mate, but we look at a story about Canberra, the Canberra market, and what's happening down there. It's interesting after the federal election to see, what happens. That is one market in Australia that is so dependent on the outcome of a federal election, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. You very high level of public servants there, but I've done a show in Canberra, and for those folk who haven't actually spent much time in that market, it's surprisingly remarkable what's on offer there. You kind of just think that it's a big white house with a flag on the top and not much else going on, but it's very cosmopolitan. There's a heap going on, so I really enjoy my time in Canberra.
Yeah, I haven't been there for a few years, but I think the last time I was there about 3 or 4 years ago, and I just can't remember who was in power at the time, but I remember walking around the central city area and seeing so many vacant commercial properties. I don't know if it's an area that I'd like to be investing in commercially, but certainly, as you said, there's a lot of great opportunities. They had recently that Mr. Fluffy scare too, where, going back, there was a lot of asbestos insulation, a lot of homes that I had to totally destroy.
Yeah, no, that's not good for confidence. But good place to. The interesting thing with Canberra is, it's leasehold, and they have land tax that kicks in from the very first dollar that you buy. So when you talk to the agents there, it's largely owner occupier. Because you have that exemption, and as soon as you run a rule over it as an investor, you go, geez, that land tax bill is going to kick in pretty quick.
We're going to come back after this very short break, and we'll put Bryce to the test here. We'll ask him to read this next headline. Back in just a moment. Okay, welcome back to the show. And as I said, Bryce Holdaway is my very special guest. And Bryce, of course, the co-host of the Property Couch podcast and also the co-host of Escape from the City on the ABC. Here's a test for you, Bryce. Read the next headline. This one comes from Riz Limited. Anyway, read it for me.
Yeah, it's a tough one. So a panda eats, shoots, and leases.
Yeah. Okay. The story here is, I think we're not going to play the video because the video is really, I think, quite boring. But some of the photos are quite interesting. Lee Wilson, 42, dressed up as a panda to help sell his house. Apparently, the story here, Bryce, was that the house had been on the market for some time, hadn't sold. Agent came in and said, "Hey, we need to do something a little bit different here. Why don't you dress up as a panda?" So he did. And the panda shots that we're probably showing you right now are the ones of him, not the agent, but the seller, dressed up in the panda outfit.
Geez, I thought it was a smart move, Kevin, because I always think it's got to pass the thumb test, right? So do you know how we're often sitting on the couch or wherever with our phones and we're doing the one finger thumb scroll?
Yes. Yes.
We've got to find out something that's going to get us a pattern interrupt. That thing where you're scrolling through and all of a sudden you put your thumb down and you stop it on the screen. And the fact that we're talking about it just goes to show that it achieved that pattern interrupt, goal where even for the majority of the people that are looking at that particular ad, they're not going to do anything about it. Hopefully what it does is it allows the actual buyer to come along and generate some interest. And as you and I both know, the agent, all they want is two people interested in a property so that they can jewel it out and hopefully they can get an outcome. So I reckon it was a smart move. The challenge is that if everyone starts to do it, it'll lose that pattern interrupts. But the fact that they were unique and first move advantage, I think it was clever.
Yeah, you've got to make your advertising stand out somehow, and I'm with you on that one. I think it looks good, but I think the video was really quite ordinary. If you're going to do that, I think sometimes it's worthwhile investing a little bit of extra money and getting a professional shoot done. But I thought it was quite cute the way the panda tried to hide his privates in the shower. So there you go. Go and watch the video.
Well, I didn't watch the video, so for me, I reckon they should have just stopped at the photos because that's what's getting everyone to go, wow, have a look at that. That's clever. Oh, have you seen that? And flick it onto your mates. Yeah. So,
I want to tell you about our next story about a rather unique floating home in San Francisco. It's hit the market, listed for $1.8 million. The home's a bit of a rarity in the city by the bay. This one comes from Realtor.com. Interesting to note in this too that the banks, and you're probably not going to be surprised to hear this, but they simply will not lend on a property like this. So you'd have to have, $1.8 million in your back pocket to buy this property. But, it is absolutely spectacular. Once again, we'll share a few photos with you.
Yeah, rumour has it that the bank saw the paperwork and saw they had a sinking fund in place and decided not to go for it.
I resisted the temptation on this one where it said something about, the ultimate water views. This property has floated onto the market. I wanted to avoid all of those sort of those comments, but well done. You have the permission to do that, of course.
Yeah, that's right. We toyed with it in the past because on Location Australia that I used to do on the Lifestyle Channel, there was a time where we thought, wouldn't it be great if we could actually do a houseboat series? So we all of our one-liners were ready to go at that time. But I mean No doubt the bank is a little nervous about taking security for a floating palace in San Francisco. But I mean, if you've got enough coin to spend 1.8 on that, you're not worrying about the bank lending the money, and it allows you to have some really nice views. So good luck to them.
I wonder if you had a house like that, like for $1.8 million in the location that it's in. It's right in the harbour there. Whether or not you would actually utilise it and float it anywhere, or whether you'd just be content to leave it there. I don't know that I'd actually want to leave the safe harbour, to be honest.
No, and it didn't look like it was prime sort of fishing jetty on the back, did it? So, clearly those big cities are, getting exorbitant to get anywhere near that sort of proximity. So they've looked outside the square to do that. So, are you going to buy it, Kevin?
No. Not even as a holiday house or a house that you could go to and maybe spend a weekend.
Holiday house? You're living the dream. You already live on the beach.
I know. Well, it's funny you should say that because we were walking down the beach this morning and I said to Carolyn, people travel from all over the world. They spend a fortune to come to a place like this just to have a week or two, and we can come down and enjoy this anytime. I actually put a photograph this morning up on my Instagram account of the photo. Of the sunrise. It's just absolutely spectacular.
Yeah, no, you're living the dream. Well done. No,
we are indeed. Hey, next story comes to us from Realtor.com in the States, and this one is a lesson in what turns buyers off. Going to share some photos with you on this one too, because here's some great lessons. This is just absolutely gaudy, and they wonder why it's taken 5 years to sell it. They thought it was going to be a real bonus by putting all the furniture in. You'd be better off getting rid of all the furniture.
Yeah. People. The first thing they've got to do is try and project themselves into a space. So if you're having a look at that, you see it's very difficult to project yourself in that at all.
That's right.
So yeah, it just goes to show, when you look at the reality TV shows, Kevin, as you know, the people that tend to do the best are the people that stay neutral, that appeal to the biggest market, that have an opportunity to have people, fighting over it. If you're lucky enough to find the one quirky person in the world who would be interested in that property, they realise that they've got it all to themselves. So they're in the box seat.
Yeah, that's one of the things that the agent said, is it's going to take a particular type of buyer for this property. And I think that raises the other thing too that has always occurred to me, the number of agents who will advertise, or even sellers who will say our property is unique. The moment you talk about a unique property, it means you're going to wipe out probably 90% of your market.
Yeah, absolutely. The goal of the agent with their photos is one thing, and that's not to tell you as much as they can about the property. It's to get you to make an appointment to have a look through. And if you're faced with photos like that, you're up against it, aren't you? So you might as well call a spade a spade.
Indeed. The next story I want to tell you about is from the Canberra Times. An interesting home, this one. It won an award for being, so out there. It's interesting that they asked the owner, Lindy is her name, to describe the home, and she really struggled. She came up with the title of Happy, because that's why we call, whether it's kooky or whether it's oddball or whether it's downright genius design. But it actually won a design award, so it's got to have something, Bryce.
It does, and I'd love to walk through it and just get a sense for myself on how happy it makes you feel. But the fact that it's in the forest, I already think it's got an advantage for the happy space. But quirky is. I'd like to see what that looks like. Yeah,
it's when an agent lists a property, and you'd know this too. The one thing they've got to look for in the advertising is the reason why the present owner bought the property. That's probably a reason why the new owner is going to buy it, and that makes a great headline, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and it's always good for them to try and quickly mine out what it is that they love about it, so that they can pass that on and again future pace the person that wants to be in there, and they go, I can see myself here. So, but lots of timber there, Kev. So that's right up my alley. So
you're a timber man, are you? You like your timber?
As much exposed timber as you can find, and then the fact that they've got glass and lots of natural light. That's ticking off